Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast. Today's entrepreneurs are mental athletes that have to know about the mind and how to keep it fit. Our goal is to increase our resilience against stress and anxiety, optimize our productivity, motivation, and optimism by learning about the human mind through psychology, neuroscience, and human behavior. I'm your host Ozan. I'm a founder who has experienced the challenges of launching and growing a business and a keen student of human behavior over the last 15 years. I'll share with you what I know and learn. Hundreds of impactful, behavior-changing ideas are waiting to be discovered by us. Let's begin now. Hello and welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast. I'm your host Ozan. It's been a while. I'll be honest, I was taking a quick break to just energize myself. I wasn't this flexible with this a few years back. I was more ambitious in a way of not allowing myself to take longer holidays. But since this show is about mental fitness and mental health, I think that has a place in this conversation as well, allowing yourself to take some time off. Recompose yourself, think about your priorities, and while doing that, feel okay to let some of the opportunities in business go and have some sort of trust that you can actually make up that distance with higher energy when you come back. And it's been like that for me. I've been back for the last 1.5 weeks, and now it's time for the Mental Fitness Podcast, one of the favorite parts of my job. So today I think the thing I would like to share with you is a story that I've run into while browsing Reddit. It's entitled Mental Health in Startups, and it was published 3 years ago, so quite some time has gone over that. And I'll just read you a section of it and then talk about actually the biggest mental health mistakes we make in startups, either as founders or employees or entrepreneurs. So the post goes like this. In the last year, I've struggled with stress, anxiety, panic attacks, and sleepless nights. And the story goes, in September 2012, I dropped out of university to start the first company. 3.5 years, team and I went into two accelerator programs, raised $1 million, built a product used by 50 million users. And the user actually compares this process to falling in love, totally and utterly consumed by the startup, investing heavily in that, and it becomes your everything. It's you invest not your time, but your actually psychological energy. And let's just take a quick side note here, and go into a tangent which I think is valuable. While you are thinking about managing your time and managing your productivity, and other resources that have to do with productivity, we usually think in terms of the amount of resources, time resources spent. This is actually not the best way of looking at it. It's an okay way, but because we are not robots and we don't have a consistent and predictable work output, the real value there, the real resource there is your psychological, creative energy, and that's the thing you need to manage, not your time. Some days you have that psychological, creative energy oozing out of you, and then in 3 hours you get incredible amounts of work done and high quality work, really impactful for the business. And at other times you might spend 20 hours working on something and might not get the same result. That's because the main resource there is that creative energy of actually wanting to put something out there. That aside, back to the story. So then I think his name is James. James talks about the immense pressure from outside and from inside. Externally, under pressure from shareholders, employees, customers, friends, family, everyone. And then you compare yourself to the rockstar CEOs and TechCrunch articles. That puts more pressure on you, he says. And the other thing is that he talks about the fact that startup becomes your identity. It is who you are. You can't meet anyone without pitching the business. You don't stop talking about it. Your entire life revolves around it. And then you become consumed by it. And it becomes quite difficult. And it becomes at this point a mental health issue because it becomes intertwined with your sense of who you are, your sense of identity, your sense of value and self-worth. And these are actually things that takes years to grow. They're just like budding plants when you're a teenager, and then you grow them, and you hope that becomes and turns into a strong tree that can support the weight of what life has to throw at you. But when you actually restructure your personality, your sense of who you are, without conscious consideration and awareness of it, then it becomes a huge issue. Of course, there is some transformation, but it needs to be deliberate. And then he talks about the difficulties with mental health and how it has changed him. The story takes a tangent. He talks about how he stopped that startup and actually started building something around mental health and got investment from two other people and had it easier and actually focused on something that he really liked doing. So it seems to have an happy ending. I don't know what happened later on. But if you'd like to check it out, like the title is Mental Health in Startups. It's a post in Reddit. So here are my conclusions. Here are my takeaways from this for the biggest mental health mistakes that we do in startups. And this is, of course, not a comprehensive list, but I think it relates very well with what the author of this article has experienced. And I can certainly resonate with some parts of that myself. So first of all, one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is to make the startup your entire identity, and this is quite dangerous. The people that I see who are more vulnerable to this are usually people who have a limited amount of life experience, have a limited amount of exposure to different identities, I would say. I mean, the contrast to that would be that you've spent some time playing a certain sport, so you do have an identity as a football player, for example, or that you've played a musical instrument and that you're known in some circles as the guy who plays the piano. So, for example, a character like this is more resilient to actually making their entire identity being the founder of that startup. So that's why having that richness in your life is very valuable. So if you're not careful and if you make that startup your entire identity, you have actually pushed yourself into a very, very dangerous corner, because if that startup becomes a successful business and it grows really well, then your sense of worth and success is actually based on the success and the growth and the profitability of that startup, which is quite sad. If you take that startup away, then there is nothing left. But the opposite is not a good scenario either. If that startup fails, then you feel that you have failed as a person, which is quite a hard hit to take. So that's why you should not make your startup your entire identity. Number two is that you neglect friends, family, social life, hobbies, and physical health. Like, we are a holistic organism, like the Gestalt psychology talks about this in very much detail, but the gist of the matter is we are not able to compartmentalize as narrowly as we like our performance in different areas of within ourselves, because we are one unit, and what happens in the physical domain affects us. And as such, what actually happens in your social life, the quality and the value and the frequency of your relationships with your friends and your family will actually affect your psychology through neurochemistry, and that's something that's proven. And because of that, if you neglect friends, family, social life, hobbies, physical health, at the end of the day, this is going to come back as a negative for your performance in the startup as well. So you will be actually burning a resource for a short-time boost, which in the long run will cap your maximum potential if you neglect all of these. The third one is that you compare yourself to rockstar CEOs and cool founder stories. The huge problem with this is just as you compare yourself to an Instagram model, it might be their full-time job to actually exercise, get their body in perfect shape, and dress up in the best way possible, do tons of makeup, and then take 200 photographs and put the best ones out there. So that kind of a process, that's not an organic and authentic process, which is okay. I'm not dissing that, I'm not saying anything negative about that. It's just that as a consumer, as a person on the receiving end of that content, we need to be very over the fact that it should not be a comparison point. It's not a fair comparison point, and it's just like that with tech founders and rockstar CEOs and rockstar developers and product people as well. It is mostly PR, and the fact that it's mostly PR means it should not be a reference point for you. If you do, it's gonna make you feel actually lacking in some areas, and have that feeling of inferiority, which is a problem. The fourth one, I think, is really simple, is to neglect sleep. If you neglect sleep, then actually, I mean, not only that, it accelerates the time and the potential of you having Alzheimer's and decreasing your problem-solving potential during the day. It is actually a huge problem because of the fact that it is much more difficult to remain calm, composed, and make logical decisions when you are sleep deprived. So yeah, don't be sleep deprived at all, because there's like this myth going around: startup CEOs sleep 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. That's just such a unreasonable way of communicating. And the last one, I think, being an entrepreneur and being in the journey of a startup is actually a long-term, it's kind of like a war. And within that war, there are individual battles. If you spend all your energy, all your resources, and deplete yourself to the fullest extent in just the first battle, then you have lost the war as well. And there are going to be new battles that's to come. And that's the thing to take away from here, I think. Don't use up all of your energy in round one. There is going to be round two. There is going to be round three. You make sure that there's going to be round two or round three. Because if that does not happen, like think about it like this. Of all the things to know about how to build a perfect startup and perfect business, what percentage of those do you think you know right now? When you have begun your career, let's say it's a 2 out of 10, it's a 3 out of 10, right? And if after you've built your startup, now that's a 5. After you've built your second startup, maybe that's a 7, that's an 8. Now imagine you go into a new business venture 8 out of 10 rather than 2 out of 10. So if you spend all of your energy on what you have built with an understanding of 2 out of 10, then that's not good, is it? So that's why you have to give, that's another reason why you have to give yourself an opportunity for a second round, a third round. So remember this, and don't use up all your energy in round one. So I think these are the main themes of the mental health mistakes people make in startups, inspired by this Reddit post that I've introduced with you. Hope that's useful. Great to be back with new episodes. Hope all of your business ventures are going really well, and even the struggles, struggle well, I would say, if you're struggling. And yeah, hope this is useful to you as always. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.